This is Reverend Jacqueline Stober, and you're listening to the Black History Month podcast 2021.
So, welcome to this Black History Month podcast. I'm delighted to welcome Reverend Jacqueline Stober, who is an alumni of the University of Liverpool and a Scouser.
I
am. So, hopefully, this will provide some really interesting viewpoints into Jacqueline's journey and hopefully a good contribution to Black History Month discussions. So, welcome, Jacqueline.
Thank you. It's amazing to be here.
Is it Jacqueline or Jackie?
Well, that's quite a story in itself. It's Jacqueline. Because I never used to be Jacqueline. Jacqueline's my middle name. My first name is Brenda. So all through my life, I was Brenda until they ordained me. And when I became a priest, I thought to myself, do you know what? I had no confidence growing up. And so although I really wanted to be known by my middle name, I never had the courage to say, no, I want to be Jacqueline. And then when they finally made me a priest, I thought, flipping heck, they've made me a priest. For goodness sake, if they can make me a priest, then they can call me Jacqueline. And at the time I was a curate, and church people aren't really known for their willingness to embrace change. So a lot of people really struggled because they were like, no, your name is Brenda. So we can't call you Jacqueline because your name is Brenda. And I'm going, no, but I want to be Jacqueline. And some people thought I was mad and made the change, but other people just couldn't do it. So in the end, I said to them, listen, it's a midlife crisis. Just be grateful. I'm not insisting you call me Queen Latifah. And then after that, Jacqueline wasn't a problem.
Well, if you've got a second name, why can't you use it? That's what I say.
Well, I just as a kid just never had the courage. But I thought, if they can make me a priest, they can call me Jacqueline. You know what? No. So that's what happened.
So you just mentioned about obviously being a kid and having confidence. So do you want to give us a bit of background about where you're from and who you are?
I grew up. I was born at Sefton General Hospital, which was on Smithdown Road, where the Asda is now, if anybody knows it. And my mum was a nurse there. My dad was a doctor, but he, as part of his training, went over to New York to work in a place called Troy, over there, upstate New York. And he died in a road accident. So we ended up coming back to Liverpool. So although I sort of was born in Liverpool, went to live in New York for a little bit, but then came back to Liverpool where my mum's extended family was. And so growing up without a father, and being black in Liverpool and going to exclusively white schools, where I was the only black kid there, it kind of had a huge effect on my confidence. And so it took a lot to sort of overcome that. But part of it was no, my name is Jacqueline and I don't care what you think. And that really was the start of it. But by that stage, I was 50. So, flip. Took a while.
Well, I haven't got any middle names, so I'm just stuck with my name. So
well, make one up. Queen Latifah's going if you want that.
So did you go up around Smithdown, or was it in another area of Liverpool?
Smithdown Road, went to Lawrence Road didn't. Up the road from Lawrence Road's primary school, but went to every school I go to, they knock it down after I leave. I'm not entirely sure why. But I went to the Morrison County Primary, which was on Greenbank Road. So all the students will know that. And then went to Chilwell Valley. So, yeah. And then did my A-levels at college along the end of Muirhead Avenue, and then went to Liverpool University.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you study at Liverpool?
Well, I was a failed medic, as lots of people are, but I went and did microbiology.
Okay.
Yeah. And mostly biochemistry alongside it for the first couple of years. And then branched out and did a bit of genetics and a bit of algology and all sorts of bits and pieces. And so I didn't do a microbiology degree. Just ended up with a sort of life sciences degree.
Oh, cool. When around was this? Around the late 70s, was it?
79. Yeah.
It was 9.
Yeah.
What was it like then being at the university?
Well, I can't imagine how many students there are now, but the time I went, at Liverpool University itself, there were only 7,000 students.
7,000. I think we've got about, we normally say about 25,000
Yeah,
on
I'm not
campus
surprised.
now.
Yeah. But then we had John Moores as well, and I don't know how many there were, but there weren't many. I mean, it felt like a lot going from a school to 7,000 people, but actually it's nothing these days, 7,000.
No.
So
you mentioned you spent some time in America. Was
yeah.
were you really young then, or was you in your teenage years?
So yeah, no, I only stayed in America till I was about 4. We came back, as I say, because of my mum and babysitting and family and stuff. But what I did later on, after I graduated from Liverpool, I married a student, and he was Canadian. So I went to live in Canada for several years, for about 12 and a half years. And then came back here in about 1998. Yeah. So it was enough to sort of, I couldn't get a Canadian accent. I did try, but it kind of wiped out a lot of the Liverpool. It's still there. People don't notice it sometimes, but it is there. And it's fine. I like it. So I wouldn't want to lose it. But it's kind of interesting because it's kind of, your accent is all the influences that have made you up. So there's a bit of Liverpool, a bit of Canada. It won't sound like Canadian to anybody, but I know it's there. Yeah. And now I'm working hard on Derby, which is where I am now.
Well, I was going to say, obviously is it a dean?
Well, I'm an area dean. A dean is a very esteemed person. I'm not a dean. Area dean. So a dean is somebody who'd be like in charge of a cathedral. An area dean is really, it's more or less an administrative job where I make sure all the vicars in my area are kind of looked after and know what the bishop wants them to know, basically. So it's like an intermediate role, but it sounds important.
So how do you go from biochemist to Church of England dean in Derby?
Oh my goodness, that's a story. Okay. So I did this degree. I'd always, as a child, wanted to be a missionary. That was the dream. I was only a child, so the dream was a jet ski going up the Amazon, taking the gospel to the Indians up there, or the indigenous. That was the dream. But I was a kid, so I didn't know any better. But never lost that desire to work full time for God. Went to St. Clement's Sunday School in Toxteth, down what we used to call Beaumont Street. And that was a great place to teaching you about the Bible and about Christianity and stuff. Really great Sunday school. Anyway, so by the time I was coming to the end of my degree, casting about trying to decide what to do, I revisited this idea of working for the church. And it had to be in those terms, because in those days they didn't ordain women. And I remember having conversations with people saying, well, I suppose there are a lot of people who think that if you ordained women, it wouldn't be any more valid than ordaining a dog. And I know,
Really?
This person is, well, I won't say still my friend, but I know where he is. I can track him. So I just thought, oh, ouch. No, then I can't do that. I don't want to upset people. I'm here to, I want to change the world type thing. So I went off and trained to be a teacher, and went off and taught secondary science and biology at what's now Archbishop Blanche School. So I went away and I thought, well, a friend I knew went to the bishop, and the bishop said, we're not ordaining you, go away. Yeah, so I just went away. I thought, live my life and see what happens. So I got married, went to Canada. My husband was training for the ministry. So I thought, oh, well, as a woman, my My vocation will be to support my husband. Now, remember, I'm not your generation. I'm a lot older than you. So in those days, you could think in terms of that. Anyway, so I went and supported my husband, and he went away and never did finish his training. He had all sorts of mental health issues. Marriage ended up sideways. I came back to Britain thinking, what was I thinking? That I thought our marriage was made in heaven and it was all going to be plain sailing, and it was anything but. So I wrote to the bishop and I said, dear bishop, because I'd heard our new bishop, James Jones, was really into issues of racial justice. He's the guy who helped the Hillsborough people in the end, but he hadn't got into helping them yet. He didn't know enough about it. Anyway, so I wrote to him and said, I want to be a vicar. I've always wanted to. What do you think? And I thought, don't be ridiculous. Number one, you're a woman. Number two, you are black. Number three, you're about to get divorced. That is just ridiculous. The church is not ready for you. So I scrunched it up and threw it in the bin. And just thought, I can go to church, I can get involved, I can do what I need to, and I don't need to worry. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Well, about 3 or 4 years later, I bumped into the bishop, funnily enough, here in Derbyshire. And he said, we were at a conference, and he said, oh, do you want to have a chat? And I talked to him about this vocation of wanting to be a priest. And he said, oh, come and have a word with me. So I went to talk to him. And he said, so have you ever thought of being a priest? So I said, yes, I wrote you a letter about 5 years ago. And he went, what? You wrote to me? And I said, oh, no, I threw it away. And he was really cross, you could see, and I'm thinking, oh, Flip, I better own up. Because I said, well, I didn't think that you'd want a black person to be a vicar. And he was like, well, nobody asked me. You could have asked me and I would have told you. Anyway, so he did. So that's how I ended up. But for me, coming from like this miserable divorce and losing my faith and thinking God's not interested, what made me think I know what God planned for my life? That was just ridiculous. To the moment when he said, have you ever thought about being ordained? And it was just like one of those moments where the clouds part and there's a single sunbeam comes down at you through the sky, and it landed on me. And I just thought, even though with all this misery, I can't see God, God can still see me, and I'm still held in the palm of his hand. So he still is looking after me. And that was a lovely moment. Anyway, so I then went to become a priest. And at the time I was in Liverpool, I was like the only active black priest.
Really? So what year are we talking here?
So that was 2007 when I was ordained.
Oh, that late as well?
There were 2 others, but they didn't they weren't, it's that we've got different types of priests, but I was the only, there was one guy who'd been a vicar and retired. So at the time, I was the only one. Okay. But it's a funny thing. They say you can get 1 or 2, but you never get a decent sized cohort. And I think that's the effect. And I know we shouldn't say it, but that's the effect of institutionalized racism. People know they're not really part of it. They're not properly welcome. And so you only get like the diehard like me and the people who don't pay attention to the subtle, unintentional bias you get.
So do you feel that the Church of England at that time was either quite overt, or was it the microaggression type of behaviour of racism, or just being felt to be not welcome?
Both. I've had people say to me, oh, you're very welcome at our church, but if you go down the road, there's a Pentecostal where you'd be more comfortable. And it's just like, I don't have anything against Pentecostal churches, but I'm Church of England, and you've just ostracized me and made me feel not welcome. And, you may have done it thinking that you were being kind, but no, you've just, So that's the sort of level you get it at. Sometimes you get overt racism, like when I go to a church and people just leave. But I just think, well, it's their loss, isn't it?
I can't really imagine someone being so unhappy with the vicar that you'd actually leave the church.
Absolutely. Off you go. So they'll find another church and they'll be happy there, and I won't worry about them. And they do it not just for being black, but for being a woman as well. And I just think, well, it really is your loss. I'm very sorry for you. And, that's sad. That's a bad thing.
So does your approach, obviously, you just mentioned being a woman and a black woman in the Church of England. I'm guessing that is an important part of your ministry, about how you approach your faith, how you promote your community.
I think when I first got ordained, being the only one, and tell you something, the year I went through, because what you have to do before you start training, you have to go to this thing called selection, where they spend about 2 or 3 days asking you questions and making sure that you're a reasonable person or suitable and, intelligent enough and all that sort of thing. You know your Bible, that you're committed to. Anyway, so, but the year I went to selection, I was the only British-born black person in the country, not just in Liverpool, in the whole country, out of 650 people, the only one. And so I mean, yes, that some years there were more and other years, but that particular year, that was me, the only British-born person. So people who are brought up abroad do better, much better than people, I think, who went through our school system. That's my theory. That's a dissertation I did for my bachelor's degree in theology. But the way I look at it is they need me. They need me because if they didn't have me, where would their inclusivity be? And being visible minority, they don't know. I mean, racists don't know this, but I mean, I think because I'm here, I validate you because, and remember my generation. So I don't want to tell you exactly how old I am, but I graduated in 79, so that's how old I am. For us, that generation is not anything, not inclusive. And yet they want to be the church and they want to represent the church to the people of their community. But they can't do that with any credibility unless they have black people and gay people and transgender. They need that to validate them with the surrounding community. Otherwise, people look at them and think, well, I don't really want to be a person that thinks like that. Because, half my friends are gay and half my friends are black. And we couldn't all go together. So, you know what I mean? I don't want to labour the point, but I just think they need me more than they think they do. And it may be difficult for me, but I know I'm needed. So that kind of takes me through a lot of grief.
It's probably a bit of a stereotype on my behalf, but I always assume that parts of the black community are generally more religious than the average white community and would be more want to be involved in the church.
And that's what they don't know. If you look at the church growth statistics, this is before the pandemic though, church growth, people always think, oh, the church is dying, nobody goes to church anymore. But if you go to London or some other cities around the place, there's massive church growth going on. And a lot of it is driven by black leadership or BAME leadership, not necessarily black, and where they've got high proportion of BAME people in the pews. So there's something about the way black people do church that is revitalizing the churches and causing those churches to grow. So my passion really is, what is it about those churches that we can take and use in our rural churches? I'm a rural vicar. So what is it that they're doing there that we can replicate and stop the church from continuing to experience, falling numbers? And in the rural community, it doesn't make much difference. It doesn't take much to have a lot of growth. So if you've only got a congregation of 10, one more person coming and you've got 10% growth, it's brilliant. It's great in the statistics.
Have you, in the lockdown, have you been have you moved online?
I have. It was painful for somebody like me, but I now have a podcast. Oh, I should have looked up. All it is I just say morning prayer. Well, it's not even morning prayer, it's daily prayer. So it's a 10-minute podcast. And all I do is read the psalm, read a little bit of the Bible and say some prayers. So it's all over and done within 10 minutes. But it's amazing. It's lovely. So I do it every day, no matter what. And people just tune in and listen. I'm not going to tell you how many people. The numbers are relatively small, let's be kind. But it's interesting, the distribution, because there are people from Britain and some from America. I'm sure these are all my family, but at least, some from America and even some from Australia. And I've got no relatives in Australia, so I don't know what's going on there. One or two in Ireland as well. So it's really interesting that whatever it's doing, it's meeting a need somewhere for people to just touch with the divine at some point in their day and then get on with their day. It's doing something. So I'm really enjoying that.
Yeah, that's good, because there is discussion. Well, there is the point, isn't there, that not necessarily people have lost their faith, it's just lost going to church.
They don't go to church, and that's what I mean, that a lot of going to church implies taking on all those sort of assumptions that you think of when you think of churchgoers. And people don't want to, swallow the whole thing. They want to be able in this day and age to make their own decision about what they take on. And so you have to have that kind of light touch for people so that they can come and get what they need and then go on with their day. So that's fun. But we also have Zoom church, which is quite entertaining. And I've been doing live streaming on Facebook, which was very entertaining, but it's fun. And then we've just recently started to go back to sort of, I'm tempted to say real church, but I don't mean real church, because actually I think the Zoom church is just as much real church as sitting in a pew risking getting COVID. So, yeah. But it's been a challenge, a lot of steep learning curve.
Yeah, lots of tech you've got to learn and ways of doing it. And...
Yes, oh my goodness. How do you use that thing?
So you touched on before about your dissertations for your batch. Was it a theology batch?
Well, I did too.
And then...
Yeah, I did. As part of the training before you get ordained, I did a bachelor's dissertation. That actually was validated through Leeds. And that was all about how to increase the numbers of minority ethnic clergy in Liverpool diocese specifically. I was feeling lonely. But I just thought, what is it that other people have taken to heart and voted with their feet that I have obviously been so insensitive? I've not noticed all these microaggressions. And here I am. So I kind of wanted to explore what it was that helped people to get ordained in the first place. And so I interviewed, it was really fun, a bunch of Black priests, a bunch of white people training to be priests, and then, who are the other group? Oh, a group of Black people. When I say Black, I mean BAME, so I'm being inclusive there. A group of people who were interested in becoming priests. And it was really good because it kind of blew away all the stereotypes, because that bishop I was talking to you about how wonderful he was in encouraging me to go forward, subsequently said things like, we need to have more Black priests, so why don't we lower the educational requirements? And it's just like, what?
Yeah, it's not addressing the issue, was it, like you mentioned before, education and being disadvantaged in education, and it's not exactly achieving what you want.
Well, what happened was I could show that the group of people who were interested in being ordained actually were better qualified as minority ethnic people than the white people. So no, you don't need to patronize us. We're just as capable as anybody else. So no, you don't need, all you've got to do is just be welcoming. And that's the challenge for the church, really. As I say, they don't like change, so it's sometimes hard. So that's what that was about, and what things sort of encourage people to become priests. Things like going to Sunday school, but also things to do with leadership, like leading a Bible study or helping out with the youth group or reading the Bible in church or sitting on the PCC. All those tiny things build up until eventually the person feels a call to ordination. So if anybody's interested in being ordained, do that ground level stuff and build your confidence. And so that was the first dissertation. And then the second one I did, that was a master's. I was up in Newcastle in my last post, and near Durham. So I went along to St John's Cranmer Hall and did a master's there. And that was based on, okay, so we've encouraged a lot of people now, Black people and, BAME people, to come and get ordained, but they're not in positions of senior leadership, as with most big institutions. So what is it that's stopping Black people from doing well? And there's this phrase that the National Health uses, the snowy white peaks, where lots of Black people, but none in management, So I thought, yeah, the church is a bit like that. What can we do? And so what I did was identified, there were only actually 9 people, Black or minority people, in positions of leadership in the church. So I interviewed them, or most of them, and just asked them, first of all, how did you get ordained in the first place? But what's helped you prosper? What obstacles did you overcome? And what value are you anyway in a white majority church? What's the point of Black people? What can we offer? And, in the future, what will you have given to the church? And they were fabulous. Only one of them, I think, one of them at the time was a bishop, but one was a dean in charge of, I better not say, because it's all supposed to be confidential, but archdeacons, people holding special positions within General Synod and things. And they really were inspirational, the things they said, the way they overcame the obstacles that they came across. And they were great, really adding value to the church.
You mentioned at one point about turning your interviews into a book. Is that still a plan?
It's sad. Well, no, partly because, and this is sad actually, because at the time I pitched to 1 or 2 publishers, and maybe I took too long and missed that moment, because there is a sweet moment. But the people that were that I really wanted to work with, they said eventually, sorry, no, we don't need your idea, because we already have a book on that topic. And so they didn't listen. And you know what publishers are like, they don't really listen clearly. But the book that's been published, I can highly recommend it. It's by a guy called Azariah Franz Williams, and his experience as a priest in the church. And I'm not dissing him. Get the book and read it, because it's brilliant. But his emphasis is on the racism he's experienced and the hard times he's been through and other people have been through. But what I wanted my book to be was for these people to be an inspiration. I wanted it to be something where people would read it and go, oh my goodness, those people are amazing. And that's a very different emphasis. And maybe I will still write it, because nobody's saying stuff like that. Nobody's celebrating diversity. It's a big sad, it's awful. We have these awful experiences, and we can all tell terrible stories of things that have happened. But who is celebrating?
I think that's a really, really important point, because often a lot of my job is looking at the research and the focus groups and the negative experiences. But actually, there's lots of people out there, as you say, have achieved and done well, and is celebrating.
Incredibly. And we don't celebrate what they've done, and they're amazing to have overcome all that opposition and to come out the other end still, still smiling, still contributing and inspiring other people. So maybe I should still do that. Maybe I should, because it needs to be done. It really does, to give a full picture.
And if not a book, then you could potentially use your podcasts and develop it that way.
Ooh, thank you. Wouldn't that be interesting to interview people whose names you can use, because it's no longer an academic thing? And do you know what? I love that idea.
You'll be having your own podcast series of Black History Month now, and giving you ideas away.
Yes, thank you very much. I like that. I do.
So on Black History Month, is it something that you mark in your diocese? Is it something that you're actively involved with, or is it?
No, not really, sadly. I mean, it's not that individual people don't try to be, what would you say, open-minded. But people will say things like, well, we haven't got any black people, so, you know, we're not racist. It's just like, hang on a minute, have you ever given any thought as to why you haven't got any black people? So the diocese is trying. I mean, of course there are black people out there in the community, but they don't go to church. The question is, why don't they go to church then? You know, so, but you've got to get people to think and dig about for that sort of thing. So, you know, they've made me the champion of the diocese. I'm the champion for minority ethnic vocations, which is very exciting. And I try and make myself available if anybody wants to talk about vocation as my sort of special interest type thing. But it's the church here is very white, and you know, it acknowledges that. They acknowledge that, and they'd like to change, but they don't really have many tools. So they're working on unconscious bias and all that sort of thing. They really are. So one of the
it's a step change. And at first, it's about understanding what diversity and equality mean, and then the unconscious bias happens about looking about how you behave. The next thing, especially as you say in a predominantly white area, is talk about white privilege and what that really looks like, and how you challenge and even reflect on your behavior.
Yeah, and that's true, because I mean, in this village where I live, there are black families in this village, and you know, they're not Muslim, they're Christian. They would call themselves Christian, but they don't come to church. One of them actually goes to another church in another village. But why is that? You know, what did we do?
Has the Black Lives Matter process then even touched on your congregation? Is it something that gets talked about?
So, bearing in mind this particular, my group of parishes, I have 3 parishes. I thought, I don't want to scare them. I didn't want to be the angry black woman, because that's a stereotype. And it happened once when I got cross about something. All people saw was an angry black woman, and it was a nightmare anyway, but that's what they saw. They didn't see a passionate person or someone who was defending the vulnerable or anything like that. They just saw that stereotype. So I thought, when all this, you know, Black Lives Matter came so much in public consciousness a couple of months ago, I thought, well, I don't want to put them on the back foot. I don't want them to be defensive and block out everything I say. And so what I did was nothing. Didn't say a thing in my sermons about any of it. And a lot of people did. A lot of white people, especially, were saying all this stuff. And I'm thinking, do you know what? First of all, I know that stuff. I don't need to explore it for the first time out loud in front of the congregation. But also, I want them to come with me on a journey. So, and I'm sure their hearts were in their mouths, and I'm sure they thought I was going to shout at them all for being racist and all that stuff. And I thought, no, I'll be smarter than that. So I didn't say a thing for a few weeks. And then gradually in my sermons, I would sort of try and be inclusive in that. Of course, none of us wants to be racist, or of course we want to include, and of course, and to sort of be alongside people and take them with me. So that's more or less what I'm trying to do. So I don't call them names. You know, yes, of course it's there, but I'm not identifying anything in particular. Other people have. Other people, certain parishioners have used words like, you know, things like, I don't think you realised how difficult it would be as a black woman in a church like this, and all that sort of thing. And I let them say that sort of thing, but I don't, because I want them to feel safe and come on a journey with me. So that's the way I do things.
I was also wondering whether there's a bit of feeling that because you are a black woman, that there's that pressure on you to have to say something, to stand up and be vocal. And sometimes that happens when people involved in equality, that it seemed on you to do it rather than the other people to do.
It's their journey. It's not my journey. I've been black for a long time, and I've done all that stuff. They're coming across this for the first time. So I don't feel the need, at least it's not that I don't feel the need, but I absolutely do not want the responsibility to educate them. I think that's their journey. So even when other clergy say to me, "Oh, Jacqueline, what books should we be reading?" I don't answer. I don't want to get involved in that. That's their journey, and I'm not making it easy. I'm not spoon feeding them. You go away and you do that yourself. So, if you want to genuinely ask me about my experiences, I'll tell you, but don't cry to me because you've just realized you're racist. Deal with it and leave me alone. Let me get on and be like a normal person instead of a figurehead or so does that
no, it's exactly, it is, what's the word, it kind of it's a good summation of there's a book, isn't it, about I'm going to stop talking to white people about race.
Why I don't no longer speak to white people about race. That's it. Yes. And it's just like, I've done this a long time and I'd just like to be an ordinary person. So you go and do the work and then we can meet up, eyeball to eyeball as people. But I don't want to spoon feed people. And also, if you tell them all your sad stories, it makes them feel bad, but it doesn't enable them to see you and your true humanity. You just become a symbol and something that makes them feel guilty, and you're not a person. They've got to do that journey themselves. So yeah, it's tough, but you have to, really.
So just think about you covered quite a lot of different topics. If you had to give like top 2 or 3 tips to someone who was thinking about becoming joining the Church of England or going on a similar journey that you followed, what would your top 2 or 3 tips be?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't try and put them off, but because it's not easy. It's not easy. This is a difficult environment to work in. It really is. So you have to be convinced that God is calling you, and you have to believe that he will give you, I'll slip into church language, he will equip you with what you need in order to make that journey. So you've got to believe in that God is with me. What I discovered with these people I interviewed, the thing that kept all of them through all the stuff that they experienced, was the belief that they were a child of God, very precious child of God, and that he loved them, that they had value. And if you're going to do this, you have to start believing that you are valuable. God absolutely treasures you and needs you, wants to use you. God doesn't need anything, does he really? But he's got a task for you. So you have to start with the belief in yourself that you are precious. So that's the first thing. And then I'd also noticed they had mentors, people who helped them on their journey, people who encouraged them. And to find somebody, doesn't have to be anybody, they don't have to be vicars or anything, just people, friends or relatives or someone you meet who can see in you the potential to serve God. Whether you end up being a vicar or not is actually beside the point. It's, do you fulfill what you feel God is calling you to do? Those are the first 2 things. And thirdly, get involved. Find something, get involved with a youth group or go to PCC and help make decisions about the dry rot in the roof or whatever. But just be visible and involved, and don't sit back in the pews and let people sideline you.
Oh, great. So thank you, Jacqueline, for joining us for this podcast. I thought it was really interesting, and I hope our listeners have found it really interesting and inspiring as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I had a really great time. Thank you. It's been good.
Well, I really enjoyed that conversation between Reverend Jacqueline Stober and Darren. There's so much in that discussion that they had that I want to go away and reflect on and think about. I loved what Jacqueline said at the end of the conversation about the importance of mentoring, and she shared about how she'd found that really helpful in terms of going for ordination, and she recommended that for others who were thinking about ordination. But actually we can apply that to all areas of our life as we want to develop in terms of our own paths. We could think about who we could get alongside and who we could ask to mentor us so that we could develop as well. I also absolutely loved that it took her to the age of 50 to choose her name and the name that she wanted to be known by. And I know I can reflect on that and think about that from my own experience, that as time's gone on, I'm hoping that I'm also growing in confidence and making profound changes like that in my life as well.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. There were some things that really stood out for me. That part when she was saying about she was told that the idea of ordaining a woman was about as valid as ordaining a dog. That was actually quite shocking to hear that. And it took some years later, obviously, for then Jacqueline being on the verge of losing her faith, to have that chance meeting with the bishop, who was actually really open to the idea of having a divorced black female vicar. So yeah, fascinating conversation. Also, the other thing that really stuck out was that she did say that she experiences subtle biases and racism all the time. But what really came from the conversation was that she has an incredibly positive attitude towards that, and she laughs at it and describes it as their loss if they decide not to be a part of her church, or if they leave for whatever reason they may see fit.
Absolutely. I particularly like what she was saying about it's actually on the individual to educate themselves, that she doesn't specifically overtly want to educate people, but in terms of racism, but actually she wants people to go out and to educate themselves. And I found that incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
And that's something that I particularly want to think about for my own practice as well. Well, there's loads in that conversation that hopefully has got you thinking and will cause you to reflect. Please do let us know what you think about the episode. You can tweet us at Live Uni Academy, and you can also find us at eLearnerMatt or at Alexandra_Owen on Twitter.
And we're really grateful for those who have taken the time to either rate or review our show in your podcast provider's app. So if you are an Apple user, please do take the time to review our show, as it really will help others find us. Bye for now.